Hey Eagle fans, I'm Thomas Mott. Welcome into Philadelphia Eagles Now, and today we're going to go ahead and continue a series we've kind of been doing over the past couple of weeks and really past couple of months here. We talk about 4 different players in terms of their outlook for the 2020 season. 4 overrated players, 4 players who need to step up, and today, 4 players who are the most underrated going into the 2020 season. So we'll go ahead and start with the first one, and one of my overall favorites in terms of who I'm looking forward to seeing in 2020 and who I think is heavily underrated is Avante Maddox, the cornerback. Now, nationally, if you were to look at the national media and they were going to break down the Eagles, they'd say, well, they fixed one side of their secondary. You know, they got one good cornerback in Darius Slay, but they have a major hole at the other side. I disagree. They're underrating Avante Maddox in a massive, massive way. Despite the fact he's a 4th-round draft pick, he's undersized and has underperformed in some games. He's been up and down. I think he's being underrated because he's going to have a very, very good 2020 season based on the fact he's had some very good games throughout his career in Philadelphia. I like how scrappy he is. I like how, despite the fact he is shorter, right, he's a smaller cornerback. He's not the typical, 6-foot Darius Slay size with long arms. He's scrappy, he gets after it, and he tackles very, very well. 2019 saw a lot of football action, obviously with a lot of injuries. The Eagles secondary had some very good numbers overall. It feels like if he starts at cornerback, which I think he will, he's going to have 3 interceptions. He's going to have 40-plus tackles. You can almost pencil that in there because of the trajectory that he's going and been playing at the past couple of seasons. Again, still a young guy. Obviously, 2018 is when he came into the National Football League, so he's getting into really the nitty-gritty here of his truly year 3, and this is the time when young cornerbacks and young players overall really start to step up. I think he's being grossly underrated. I think going into the 2020 season, he can fly underneath the radar, but once he officially beats out Sidney Jones and wins that left cornerback slot, the number 2 cornerback slot, I think people will finally start to take notice that, hey, Avante Maddox is here to stay, and he's going to be a big part of what it's going to be a completely revamped and, in my opinion, revitalized Eagles secondary going into the 2020 season. Now, before we keep going, who do you guys think the most underrated Eagle is? Answer the pinned comment down below. So I'll leave a pinned comment there that says, like, the number 1 comment will say, who is the most underrated Eagle? Answer down below that, and I'll go ahead and try and answer and reply to each one of your guys' comments in the comment section underneath the pinned comment. So answer directly, and I'll go ahead and answer back at the same time. Okay, moving on here to underrated players. This guy is extremely underrated. Isaac Seumalo he might be the most underrated starter in the entire Eagles organization in terms of offense, defense, and special teams. Nobody talks about Isaac Seumalo whenever they talk about how great the Eagles' offensive line is. He's the least known offensive lineman, and it has really had back-to-back very solid years at left guard for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, he has had a couple of games where you can kind of go, okay, you're struggling a little bit. The Chiefs game 2 years ago, and then I think it was a Falcons game week 2 in Atlanta last year where he got kind of eaten up by Grady Jarrett a lot early and often. But besides those 2 games, he's been very, very consistent and playing at a very, very high level. Now, Jason Kelce recently spoke to the media talking about the Eagles' offensive line, was asked about Seumalo, who, again, nobody likes to talk about because you have Andre Dillard, and you had Jason Peters, and you obviously have Lane Johnson and Brandon Brooks and Kelce himself. But Kelce said this about Seumalo, quote, I'm really happy to watch him go out and prove to all of you guys and everybody else who doesn't get who doesn't get the opportunity to see how good he is on a daily basis that he's one of the premier guards in this league. How about that? One of the premier guards in this league. And honestly, again, he's not going to get a lot of headlines at left guard in Philadelphia because the Eagles have a lot of Pro Bowl offensive linemen. Actually, Seumalo, last season was the only non-Pro Bowl offensive lineman on their entire offensive line because everybody else had been to a Pro Bowl at one time. But still, even with Brandon Brooks being injured, he's a big part of why the Eagles are going to have one of the top, in my opinion, top 10 offensive lines in the entire National Football League. Another crazy stat about Seumalo, he was one of only 6 players on the Eagles last year to both start and finish every single game in 2019. Let me say that again. Week 1 through week 17 plus the playoff game, there were 6 Eagle players who started each game and also finished each game, meaning they didn't get knocked down and injured, and Seumalo was one. Fletcher Cox was another. Brandon Graham, Jason Kelce, Malcolm Jenkins, and Rodney Mcleod round out the list here. So it shows his durability. It shows his ability to stay on the football field. Again, durability, which is huge right now in the NFL and huge in Philadelphia, where you have 80 players go down on IR at any given time during the NFL season. So a big overall boost there to the Eagles' offensive line. I think he's grossly underrated. He probably will stay grossly underrated just because people want to focus on the other offensive linemen in Philadelphia, which, again, rightfully so. Lane Johnson is one of the best right tackles. Brandon Brooks, when healthy, is the best right guard in the NFL. Kelce's arguably the best center. And then Andre Dillard, what was Jason Peters, one of the better left tackles in the entire National Football League. So hopefully he gets more praise than he gets right now, but I think he's fine with flying underneath the radar. He's number 2 here on my list of underrated players going into the 2020 season. Now, with that being said, I just said the Eagles will be a top 10 offensive line in 2020. Do you guys agree? Type Y down below for yes, type N down below for no. And while you're at it, we're talking about one of the top 10 players in Eagles history. How about someone who, in my opinion, is a top 5 Eagle of all time? His jersey remains on sale right now at chatsports.com/Dawkins. So, of course, legendary player. We all know how great B-Doc, Weapon X was and kind of still is in the city of Philadelphia. If you want to rock his jersey wherever you go, they're on sale right now. Just over $100, like $104. Chatsports.com/Dawkins is the official Nike, not knockoff overseas version. The real deal right now is on sale. Link is down below in the description box. Again, the Dawkins jerseys are normally not just over $100. They're way more than that on sale right now. Grab one before it is too late. Another player who might be the most underrated player on the defensive side of the football is probably Malik Jackson. And I say Malik Jackson because a lot of people don't realize the Eagles have Malik Jackson. Like, okay, wait, they signed Malik Jackson, 2 off seasons ago? Or was it last off season, but then he got injured? Like, we never see him on the football field. Is he going to be that great? Well, the answer is, 1, he's still there, and 2, when healthy, he's one of the better interior defensive linemen in the National Football League. So remember, he signed the 3-year, $30 million contract last offseason. He was the big offseason free agent addition at one point in the offseason. It's like, oh, they got Malik Jackson. That's huge. Gave him a ton of money, and we're going to pair him alongside Fletcher Cox. Well, go through training camp, go through the preseason, get to week 1. Obviously, they get to week 1, 32 snaps in. He gets injured. Literally 32 snaps in week 1 against the Washington Redskins in Philadelphia. He gets injured and is done for the entire year with a Liz Frank injury. So the Eagles have not seen him really on the football field since training camp. Again, when healthy, he's one of the best defensive tackles in the National Football League, meaning the Eagles are going to have one of the best defensive tackle groups in the entire NFL. And they're hoping that Jackson can get back to his 2017 status where he had 4 forced fumbles, 8 sacks, 40 tackles, and 11 quarterback hits. If he can get back to that, which every indication says, yes, he can actually do that because, again, just injury last year, and he was already gearing up to have a big season because he looked great during training camp and preseason. This could be one of the better interior defensive lines we've seen in not only in Philadelphia, but in the NFL in a very long time. Cox, you have Hargrave, you have Jackson. All 3 of those players can, play on the field at the same time, or you can rotate those guys in there. That way, there is never a tired defensive tackle. A lot of interior pressure is going to happen, and a big deal and a big reason because of that is Malik Jackson. He's underrated because, again, injuries. There's a guy named Fletcher Cox, of course, is probably the second best D tackle in the National Football League, and the Eagles just signed Javon Hargrave, so he's the new toy on the block, but Jackson is still there. He's going to fly under the radar, but look out. This guy's going to be very, very good going into the 2020 season. Before we go to the final player, be sure to subscribe to Philadelphia Eagles now because we're approaching 12,000 subs here on the channel. I remember when it was like 10 subs, then we got to 100 subs, and then I got to 1,000 subs, and slowly but surely we get 5,000 subs, and then we just eclipsed 10,000 subs, and now we're trying to get to 12,000 subs overall. So if you like the channel, like the content, we do news, we do rumors, sometimes live, sometimes some mailbag videos, we answer your questions, and then fun videos like this where I break down my prediction on players and stuff like that, and so we do it all here. Go ahead and click that big red subscribe button and the notification bell right below me right now, the way you guys are subscribed and notified whenever we drop a brand new video. Final player here. And again, he's a defensive player, so we're going to go ahead and end with, 3 defensive players and 1 offensive player. It's Rodney Mcleod. Now, Rodney Mcleod is not going to get a lot of praise overall at the safety position because everyone focuses on Malcolm Jenkins or the injuries at cornerback, especially in 2019. But this is a guy, again, started all 17 games in 2020. Remember the graphic we showed earlier, one of the 6 players to start all 20 games. The Eagles signed him to a 2-year extension in March, showing that they still love him, and he's only 30 years old. He turned 30 years old back in June. He still has at least 2 or 3 really good years left at the safety spot. He's a great hitter. He's the most experienced secondary player on Philadelphia, minus Darius Slay. Like, overall, you talk about experience, Slay's a better player, but Mcleod has been in the National Football League for a very, very long time. He has the experience, and he has the career stats to go ahead and back it up. 8 interceptions in the last 4 seasons. That's the most of any Eagle, and Mcleod missed all of 2018, obviously with the lower body injury. So he's consistent, he makes plays, but he flies underneath the radar because there are bigger stars, or were bigger stars, than Malcolm Jenkins at the same position who were better, right, and got all the glory, and rightfully so. Jenkins, again, one of the best safeties really in the Eagles' history, but at the same time, Mcleod is his partner in crime, running right next to him, obviously at the other safety spot, playing very, very well and at a very, very high level. His job, though, going into 2020 is not only playing at a high level, but also either mentoring, if it's Jalen Mills at the other safety spot, if it's Kayvon Wallace who fills in at the other safety spot, either way, he becomes more of a leader with Malcolm Jenkins out. I think he's ready for that, but that's why he's kind of flying underneath the radar here going into 2020. So, quick recap, Avonte Maddox, Isaac Seumalo, obviously Malik Jackson, and then Rodney Mcleod are the 4 players right now who I think are the most underrated going into the 2020 season. If I missed somebody, let me know. But, thinking about it, I didn't want to do any rookies. And other than that, I mean, there wasn't really a player I thought that was underrated. And people might say Nathan Gary, they might say Sidney Jones, but they have a lot more to prove. Whereas all these players have played at a high level up to this point, but are just getting a little bit, not pushed to the back burner, but just there are more stars or better stars at the same position on the Eagles who get a little bit more attention, and that's why, of course, these guys are underrated. There you go, though. All tell me out for today here on Philadelphia Eagles Now. We're going to be doing some mailbag videos later on this week, so, of course, get your mailbag questions in. We'll answer those as much as possible, so stay tuned for that, and also news and rumors will come out, I believe, tomorrow as well. So plenty of stuff upcoming here on Philadelphia Eagles Now, so stay tuned for all of the latest and greatest videos and all the latest, greatest Eagle news that is coming up to your subscription box very, very soon. Again, all time we have for today for Philadelphia Eagles Now, I'm Thomas Mott, signing off. Enjoy the rest of your day.